Hello friends, good morning. In the last few videos, you have seen the first three units of a water treatment plant. Those are sedimentation, coagulation and filtration. Now normally the next water treatment unit is what is called as a disinfection unit. But in your syllabus they have given it slightly in a different way, but let's follow the correct procedure. So sedimentation is the first unit, second is coagulation, third is filtration, fourth is the disinfection unit. So today we'll start with the disinfection unit. Now there are other things here, ultra and microfiltration, RO and nanofiltration. These are four different types of filtration methods, and they are given in two different modules. So we will not do like that. We will just take all the four differently, because you have to study all the four at a time to understand what is the difference between these four. And these methods of filtration, they are normally not used in the regular surface water treatment plant, right? So we will see them in after completing this, right? So now today let's start with disinfection. Now you have seen the sedimentation, coagulation and filtering processes. What are the different types of sedimentation tanks, coagulation process, what are the coagulants, what are different types of filters, what are the advantages of using all these three units and all. Now even after the water passes out of these three units, it still needs one more treatment, which is called as the disinfection. Now these three units, earlier units, what you have studied, they are going to remove the readily settlable solids, the very fine suspended particles, the colloidal impurities, and overall turbidity is removed, and you will find that the water is very sparkling clear. Now once it comes out of the filter, water will be very good to look at, absolutely free from turbidity, very clear, sparkling clear, what we say. So people will like to drink that kind of water which is completely sparkling clear, no turbidity at all. But it can have microorganisms. So disease causing microorganisms may be present. So bacterial contamination may be still there in the water. Therefore water is aesthetically acceptable and hygienically safe only when it is disinfected, right? Now the process of disinfection is very important, because the bacteriologically contaminated water may lead to spread of various diseases. So you have seen earlier, there are many types of waterborne diseases which are going to create problem to the health of the people because of these microorganisms. So unless you remove the microorganisms, you will not find that the water is hygienically safe. So the presence of turbidity, color or some minerals may not be dangerous, especially the turbidity and color. Minerals, of course, they will be dangerous only after long-term use. You have seen that in the study of the characteristics of groundwater. You have seen there are some diseases called as water-induced diseases, which people get because of drinking water contaminated by minerals, but usually when they consume it for long term, right? So the presence of turbidity, color and some amount of minerals may not be actually dangerous, but even if a single microorganism or a harmful disease causing organism is present, it can prove dangerous. Therefore disinfection is a very important process. So only after the water becomes totally free from microorganisms, then only it is safe to drink, right? So disinfection is a process which is going to kill the disease causing organisms. It is going to kill the microorganisms. So disinfection is a process where you are going to kill the microorganisms. Now the importance of disinfection can also be understood from the fact that in case of emergencies, like in water supplies to armies or in camping areas, or when people go for trekking and hiking, in such places where complete treatment of water may not be possible, in such time also, if you use some method of disinfection, then you can safely consume the water, right? So that is the importance of disinfection. Even if no other treatment is possible, but you cannot avoid disinfection. Even if a single organism is also there, it can cause infection to a person, and most of these waterborne diseases are contagious. They can transfer from one person to another person through water. So they are waterborne diseases. So they can spread from one person to another person by contaminated water. So therefore, this if you avoid or if you do carelessness in the disinfecting, it can lead to spread of epidemic diseases. The whole town, city can get affected, epidemic, right? Now, there are different methods of disinfection. The first one is called as the heat. Now, we all know the importance of application of heat to water for killing of microorganisms, and everyone must have observed in the house many times people drink boiled and cooled water. The main purpose is to kill the microorganisms. Most of the important waterborne diseases, they are not heat resistant organisms, so they can easily get killed when you boil the water, right? They are not heat resistant, so they can get easily killed by application of heat. Earlier days, it was very common. Emergency boil water orders were very common, which were issued in the time of emergencies or whenever there was any indication of spread of waterborne disease in the town or a village. The municipality or the corporation, they used to announce that people should drink boiled water, right? So boiled and cooled water. That is called as emergency boil water orders. So this was very common earlier, but nowadays, because of the improvement in the disinfecting processes, these are not, you don't find these kind of things, but still people in the house, they will follow. So the boiled and cooled water they will store and consume from that only, right? So boiling the water for about 15 to 20 minutes is found to kill the microorganisms, right? Now, there are some advantages and disadvantages with this method. The advantage is you are 100% sure about the bacterial safety of the water when you boil the water for 15 to 20 minutes. So, you are 100% guarantee that the water is bacteriologically safe, right? And then when you are doing it in a household, just 4 or 5 people in the house, this is a very good method, right? Now, disadvantages, again, because it cannot be adopted for large population, it is very impractical on a routine or large scale basis, right? So you can assume, you can imagine, you cannot boil the water for the supplying it to the whole town or a city. So this is impractical. Now another problem is, once the water cools down, so you have stored it, boiled water in some container, and once it cools down, and if the water gets recontaminated again, then you can't do anything. So this is called as residual disinfecting action. So there is no residual disinfecting action in this method. So once the water cools down, it can get recontaminated again, and if it gets recontaminated again, there is no residual disinfecting action which is going to take care of the future recontamination, right? So it can get recontaminated again. So that is one disadvantage. Now second is the application of light. Now sunlight with its ultraviolet radiation, UV radiation, is found to have bactericidal action, so it can kill microorganisms. So sunlight is a natural disinfectant. The UV rays in the sunlight, they are natural disinfectants. Now you can also use these UV rays in a household water purification plant like the Eureka's AquaGuard, which is a very popular household water purifier. So there you have these ultraviolet method, right? Now the ultraviolet method of disinfecting involves exposure of a film of water about 120 mm thick to one or several quartz mercury vapor arc lamps which are emitting this germicidal UV radiation. Right? So these lights are emitting UV radiation and water is allowed to flow in a thin film over the mercury arc vapor lamps. So when the water is exposed to UV radiation, any bacteria present in it is going to get killed. Now what are the advantages of this method is you are not adding any chemical or any foreign matter into the water. So the physical or chemical characteristics of the water are not significantly affected. Right? It is just passing UV rays, that's all. So you are not adding any chemical in it. Right? So you are not spoiling the quality of the water. Then taste and odors are not produced because there is no chemical added. So there is undesirable taste or odor which is normally found with methods like chlorine. You get like some medicine like smell there. So such kind of things is not there here because you are not adding anything in the water. And a very short contact period is sufficient. Very short contact period. Just water passes into the UV chamber and just goes out. So very quickly the disinfecting action is going to take place. Right? Now there is no problem of overdosing, the excess amount of addition of the disinfectant or something like that, because it is just ultraviolet radiation and water is passing through a UV chamber. Right? So there is no problem of overdosing. Right? So and no bad effect on the water. So these are all the advantages. So disadvantages are some types of spores, cysts and viruses may not get killed with UV radiation, but fortunately, as I have mentioned earlier, most of the disease causing organisms or pathogenic organisms, they can get killed by UV radiation and by application of heat. Right? So there is usually this disadvantage is of no value. Now whenever you are using UV radiation method of disinfection, pre-treatment or preconditioning of water is required because you have to remove the turbidity from the water. The water should be clear before it enters the UV chamber. Then only your UV will be 100% effective. Right? That is it. Then here also this method doesn't have a residual disinfecting power. Once the water comes out of the UV chamber and if it gets recontaminated, then there you can't do anything. Right? So it will get recontaminated if you don't handle the water properly. Right? Then electric energy continuously required. If you have seen those types of equipments, you know you have to always switch on the light before collecting the water. So continuous power supply is required. The equipment also is expensive, and the apparatus maintenance is also expensive. Frequent apparatus maintenance is necessary to ensure stable energy application and essentially uniform density throughout the effective radiation area. So continuously you have to maintain it properly, and these are the disadvantages of the method.